All right. Good evening, everyone. This is Dr. Sohaib Chikima, and I'm very honored to be joined today by Joe Seeman. And this is part of our educational campaign about the candidates running for different offices. And as we start, we want to know the person before we even talk about what you're running for, why you're running, and all that. So, with no delay, please introduce yourself to our constituents.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Chikima, for your time and for the interview. Let's see, who am I? It's something I'm trying to discover every day for the past 60 some odd years. I am a father, a husband, a grandfather. I am a retired software developer, a union member, public employee. I am a longtime activist and community organizer, and I've been involved with organizations such as MoveOn.org, the Interfaith Alliance of New York, Citizen Action of New York, Indivisible, which has a local affiliate, the Working Families Party. And I've been someone who has gone to the New York State Capitol for rallies, for citizen lobby days, to try and talk to our legislators about things like expanding healthcare and healthcare for all, for fair taxation, which includes taxing the billionaires and everyone fairly, for things like protecting our environment, taking action on climate change. And now I simply want to take that same fight that I've fought on the outside and take it inside the New York State Legislature to represent the people of the 112th District, which consists of 7 towns in Saratoga County, kind of South and West Saratoga County, and a little bit of Fulton and Schenectady counties. And trying to be someone who represents the average people. Something I think makes me a little bit different from some other politicians. And I even hate to use that word politician because it has so many connotations. But what I think one thing that distinguishes me, I believe, is that I refuse to take any money from any special interests, not from Wall Street, not from oil companies, insurance companies, any ultra wealthy special interest. I'm not meeting with, I'm not talking with, I'm not schmoozing with any corporate lobbyists. And I'm trying to be an honest representative of the people. And my core values are democracy, honesty, and respect for all, respect for each other. And the policy issues that are based upon those values, I can talk about, and I am talking about them every day with people who live in the district. And I'm somewhat flexible on the policy issues, and I'm open to different people's opinions. I'm certainly open to facts, data, science. But I'm trying to work with people of whatever political party or no political party who share those basic values of democracy, honesty, respect, and decency.
I'm going to really jump on this, and I want maybe like this was not mentioned during the the introduction, and that's how I got to know you. The really the other side of Joe Seaman, like the activist, the one who's fighting for all these causes that you mentioned, and that's how I got to know you. And I was very, this is not an endorsement I cannot endorse, but
Sure.
just for the educational purpose, and I think. Joe, I'm going to take this, and this is the term that I'm also kind of like working with. Instead of saying a politician, and you said it, probably didn't realize it, representative, right? There's huge difference. It could be the same position, but how you're running to represent, not to play politics, right? And as an activist yourself, I think the two of us understand the difference, right? You're elected to serve. You're not bought, to unfortunately serve the interests of the big corporation. So you did allude a little bit to the basic principles. So I'm an independent. I'm not affiliated with any party. What makes me as an independent voter choose you over anybody else? Like what makes you stand on? You did allude to that, but maybe I need more convincing. And again, this is an educational part that, you know, anyone who's watching is like, okay, beautiful, sounds good, but maybe more convincing, that you really feel it puts you on the edge?
Sure. So I am running on the both Democratic and Working Families line. My background, I've been involved as a leader in the Working Families Party, as a state committee member and leading Saratoga County organizer with the Capital District of New York Working Families chapter. I'm running also as a Democrat, but I'm not backed by the Democratic establishment. And I am ready to work with them when they're right, and I'm ready to stand up to them when they're wrong. So I put state, country, planet, people before party. And we've seen that, interestingly enough, we've seen that recently from some Republicans. Surprisingly to me, Liz Cheney, Dick Cheney are not people who I typically have admired or agreed with, but I must say there's something about the courage they have, the courage to put country before party. I am running on the Democratic line, but I'm not beholden to the party or any political establishment. And I'm really trying to listen to the people. So, and in terms of listening to people, what I've been doing pretty much every day for quite a while, spending my day talking to the people in the district. Today I was in West Glenville, a very rural part of the district. I got to see a very interesting part of the country. It's a little bit hilly out there. Got to see some interesting parts of nature, a number of flocks of wild turkeys. And then as the sun went down, I got introduced to another species, some type of very small flying bug that bit the heck out of me. Interesting, but I also get to speak to people from different walks of life. And I'm not, again, not just speaking to Democrats, I'm speaking to people of all different parties. So I'm trying to listen to people. And when I talk to people, I don't tell them so much about myself as much as I try to ask them about them and what their concerns are. And another thing that I'm doing that I don't think too many people running for office, we'll try and avoid the word politician, but too many people running for office do, is I'm holding public town hall style meetings. I've held a few of these across the district. I had one in Milton, one in Clifton Park a couple of weeks ago. Just last week, I had one in Broad Alban, a kind of far northwest corner of the district. I'm having one in Glenville in another week and a half, and then I'll be having one in October in Ballston Spa across the district. I have invited my Republican opponent to join us at all these public town hall meetings because an important thing that I've heard from a lot of people and that I feel is very important, and I try to listen, I try to learn from the people. One big issue that I found people concerned about is civility in politics. And people tell me about, well, I'm a Democrat, but I have trouble speaking to my Republican neighbors, or I have don't feel comfortable speaking to people who feel so strongly on different issues. And there's a lot of name calling in politics. There's unfortunately hatred. There is there's a lack of respect for people with different opinions. And I think that's something that kind of in a sense is more important than where we stand on the issues. So I'm trying to model how I will serve as an assembly member by having public town hall meetings as a candidate. And again, I'm inviting my Republican opponent and certainly inviting people of all political parties and backgrounds, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, all. And when I'm elected, I plan to continue having public town hall meetings. And I also plan to have public hearings on critical issues. I want to bring the issues out into the open. A number of things that I've heard, I try and take to heart what I hear from people. People have told me that they feel they don't have a voice in the New York State government. And we all know that there's a very large budget. It's over $200 billion a year. And how is that done? I'm somebody who's running for office, and I don't know a lot about, or don't know enough about how that's done. And certainly the average people don't know. And they've heard of what used to be called 3 men in a room, and actually now it's 1 man and 2 women in a room. But I'd like to see the budget process opened up. There's a concept called participatory budgeting. It's something a friend of mine, state Senate candidate, Manita Sangbi, has been talking about, and she's been doing it as an elected official in Saratoga Springs. But it's a principle that I've known about. Participatory budgeting involves bringing people, the average people, the constituents together to hear what a budget is and to give their input. So, and it's hard for me to do this visually here on Zoom, but think of a chart, like a pie chart,
Pie
and
chart.
show where our money is going. There are a lot of things money is going to: education, roads, infrastructure, public safety, all kinds of things their money is going. And I want the average person to see and to know where their money is going, and to be able to express their opinions about it so we can set our priorities straight. People tell me about the things that they expect from government. So, for example, people tell me they think government should help people with affordable childcare. That's something I hear from people with small children. They think government should provide universal pre-K, pre-kindergarten education and after-school programs. And I hear people telling me government should also provide services for senior citizens, in-home care, so the senior citizens aren't forced to move into assisted living facilities when they don't want to. And these are all important things, and they cost money. But I believe that in one of the richest states, in the richest nation in the world, the richest nation in world history, that if we simply establish our priorities, we can afford these things. Now, the governor is a Democrat who I support in some ways and in some ways disagree with. For example, she had a priority of a football stadium. Now, I've got nothing against football. I know people love football, but I would not prioritize spending all that money on football stadiums. I'd like to see our money prioritize spending on our children and our seniors, for example. So that's the type of relationship that I'm trying to have with the people who live in the district, kind of to model the type of relationship that I believe elected officials at every level should have with the people. And of course, it's a little bit easier on on lower levels, certainly town, county, and I think even state assembly, where I'm hopefully representing a district of approximately 125 or 130,000 people, to have some degree of direct democracy or deeper democracy, where you really give people an opportunity to share their concerns. The person who I'm running against, has been in office 4 terms, 8 years, has never held a public town hall. So that's a difference between us. And I think that kind of hopefully should tell the independent voter why I will really be their representative.
And I'm going to bring this back to something that actually you alluded to, and I'm sure you understand why many of us are independent, because we don't have this loyalty to the party, but more of like the issues that actually matter to us. That's why at the end we do have an impact, and the reason we have the impact is because we listen to those who are telling us that, hey, we care about these issues, and we categorize these individuals, not necessarily the person, but the agenda. So as a person who's running for office, and again, I've been talking to people like, and you mentioned Clifton Park. Interestingly enough, I know a lot of people in Clifton Park, and the question now, a lot of them, it doesn't matter what party they register under, they're asking, what do we expect from these representatives slash politicians? Depends on who you're talking to. So for you, you've been listening to people, you've been traveling around, people have been talking to you, but we know realistically in politics, as activists, ourselves, you and myself, we know that you could bring a lot of issues to the forefront, but not everything gets kind of like, addressed, let alone kind of like, taken care of. So for you, what are the top issues that anyone who's listening to us today would say,
Sure.
Joe, I'm not going to say the first 100 days because it's not presidential election, but what are the top issues that you're saying that I'm going to address as I continue to listen and as I continue to try to bring
Yeah.
more issues to the forefront?
So the top issues that I will fight for, and I will make a very big deal of, I also just want to mention, I'm not going to be a go along, get along member of the assembly, as some are, who are happy to collect the paycheck and really not accomplish much. And I can't guarantee that I will pass these certain pieces of legislation, but I can guarantee that I will fight like hell for them. And I will be willing to stand up to leadership. I will bring it up, make sure these things get brought up for a vote as best I can. And I'll talk about a few issues. One is fair taxation. There is a coalition called the Invest in Our New York Coalition. You can look them up, that has an agenda of a certain set of taxes. To summarize, make sure that the ultra wealthy pay their fair share of taxes and make taxes a little fairer. And frankly, one of the very top issues that I've heard from people, just heard a lot today, as a matter of fact, in West Glenville, is the issue of taxes. And I am middle class. I'm not poor. I'm reasonably, fairly average, affluent middle class. And I'm speaking to a lot of other people who are economically similar, and I pay a lot of taxes. I don't object to paying taxes. What I object is that if taxes are not fair and if there are some who are not paying their share. So I want progressive taxation where the wealthier pay their fair share. And if they pay their fair share, they will still be pretty wealthy. They'll be okay. I don't think we'll be hurting them. There is a myth that if you make the ultra wealthy pay their fair share, they're all going to leave. And the data disproves that. The data shows that maybe some will leave, but overall, we will, on net, collect a lot more taxes, and maybe we can make our taxes fairer for everyone else. And I've been involved in this as an activist. I'll go back to, let's say, 2011. That was a time when there was an Occupy Wall Street movement happening, and in the capital region, there was an Occupy Albany part of that. And I remember we marched from the Occupy Albany encampment up Washington Avenue around the Capitol, calling for a millionaire's tax, and it passed. So we did get a millionaire's tax passed, and the millionaires, they didn't leave. As a matter of fact, we have many more billionaires actually in New York. I think New York has more billionaires than perhaps any other state. I'm not sure about California, but if not top or one of the top. So these are things that we see work. It works. The myths that they're going to leave, they haven't left. So that's one thing that I'm going to fight for is fair taxation. Fairness is a principle. Like certain basic principles, I think should underlie all our policies, and fairness is one of them. Another issue. Let me step to another issue. Has to do with healthcare, and I am, as I mentioned, a retired software developer for the state of New York. I have what's supposed to be good insurance. It's reasonably good, but it's not that great. I had to have some dental work done earlier this year, and it cost me over $5,000 out of my pocket. And believe me, there are people who have a lot worse health insurance stories to tell. And when I talk to people about health insurance, I try to ask them what they think about it. And everybody wants healthcare. People want to be able to see a doctor when they're sick. They want their family to be able to get healthcare. But the question I have, do we need insurance companies to have that. Now, let's think why we need insurance companies. Well, if God forbid you have a $100,000 medical bill, it's not something you can write a check out of your bank account. You might not be able to do that, but an insurance company has a very deep pocket and it can cover it. And that's why we pay them all that money, of which some of it they spend on our healthcare, some of it they spend on extravagant CEO salaries and on profits and on waste. Health insurance is extremely wasteful. I've spoken to a number of medical professionals, doctors, chiropractors, who've told me about the paperwork involved in health insurance. Spoke to someone who has a small practice. They have 2 people who are practitioners treating patients and 3 people doing administrative work, paperwork for the insurance companies. So if we insure ourselves, things can be a lot different. Now, the state of New York has just as deep a pocket as any insurance company. So the state of New York, we collectively can insure ourselves through the state, and we can do a number of things that way. First of all, we can see that everybody, every single person in the state of New York has access to healthcare. And we can see that we have better access to healthcare other than the insurance policies, of which mine is insufficient, and some people's insurance is woefully insufficient. We can save a lot of money. Now, in Canada, which has a universal healthcare system, it's not perfect. And the type of universal healthcare, public healthcare that I want us to have should also address some of the problems that Canadian systems and different nations have different types of healthcare systems. The United States is the only developed industrialized nation that does not have universal healthcare. So we can look at what some other places are doing. But Canada, for example, they started one province at a time. One province had a universal healthcare system and then it spread. Well, New York can do the same thing. We can be the leader. We can lead the nation. There's a bill called the New York Health Act. It's a bill that I hope to, when elected, co-sponsor and make sure it comes to the floor. And let me tell you a little bit about it, and then I'll get into the politics of it, which is important. So we can save a lot of money. In Canada, their per capita healthcare costs are close to approximately half of what we pay. So we can save lives, we can save a lot of money, and this is related also to issues such as taxation. And taxation is a very big issue. I've been speaking to people today and many of these days about. Let's think about our state government, our county, town governments, even our school districts. All these government entities have public employees who their paying healthcare costs are, paying a lot of money to insurance companies. And to me, that's corporate welfare for insurance companies. We absolutely don't need them. We can insure ourselves. We can save money. And when we save money for our local governments, including our school districts and our towns and all the way through the state level, that savings can mean lower taxes for hardworking New Yorkers. And I'd like to talk a little bit about the politics of this and why I'm running and why I think it's important to make a difference in the assembly. As many may know, a number of years ago, New York State legislature was divided. The Democratic Party has controlled the assembly for a long time, and for many years, the Republicans controlled the state Senate. And during that time, the state assembly passed the New York Health Act, or some version of it, which would create a universal healthcare system. And of course, it was dead on arrival in the Senate, never even came up for a vote. Well, what happened a few years ago, many of us worked really hard to change the Senate. The Senate actually had a group called the Independent Democratic Conference that actually caucused with the Republicans. And some of us, particularly many of us who were involved in the Working Families Party, worked real hard to defeat them, and the Senate has become controlled by the Democrats, something that I'm proud to have been part of. I think is an improvement, and we passed some good legislation since then. But what's interesting about the politics is that the state assembly, which was happy to pass the New York Health Act when the Republicans were in control, because of course it couldn't really, ever become a law. Now that the Senate is Democratic, the assembly is not, didn't even bring up, not voting on, not passing the New York Health Act. So I think the politics here are that the New York State Assembly is Democratic, but maybe not all that Democratic. And when I say Democratic, I don't mean in terms of party, I mean in terms of representing the average people. So I think the assembly needs some more people who will fight for things like the New York Health Act for universal health care. And that's a big reason why I'm running, particularly here in upstate New York. There's a perception out there that only people in downstate, the New York City area, care about things like healthcare for all. That's wrong. And again, when I'm talking to Republicans, Democrats, Independents, all, this is an important issue that a lot of people care about. It's not just a Democratic Party issue. And I think we particularly need here in upstate, in this part of upstate New York, members of the assembly who will fight for that. So we talked about fair taxation, talked about health care for all. Another issue that I want to talk about has to do with the environment and climate change. And I think these issues, before I get into that, also are related to the issue of outflow of population. Many of us have heard that New York has lost population. And while where I live in Saratoga County, and I think much of the capital region, there's not really much of a loss in population. There is, particularly in the rural areas. So what I'd like to do is see how we can make the state of New York a place where people want to live, where employers want to create jobs. So certainly healthcare is a part of that, because right now, healthcare is an obligation of the employer. So you could be in northern New York or near the Canadian border or in Canada, an employer who creates jobs or sets up a business in Canada doesn't have the responsibility of their employees' healthcare costs, which is a very big thing, but then you cross the border into New York and they do. So if we create a public healthcare, universal healthcare system, as would be created by the New York Health Act, that would take off some of the burden that employers have. So it would be easier for people to start businesses in New York. And I think when people think about where they want to live, I think that might make New York a more attractive place for people to live. They know that if they live in New York, they'll have good health care. And let me talk about the environment and climate change. I ask people who live in this part of upstate New York why they live here and what they love about it. And one thing that people tell me repeatedly is they love the beauty of the natural environment. And I can't tell you, I think one of my favorite, maybe my favorite part of going door to door talking to voters is just to see the beauty of the different parts of the region, the lakes, the creeks, even we've got some hills here. I was in the hills of West Glenville today, the forests, and the natural beauty is a big reason that people live here, and not just of this immediate 112th district, but the nearby Adirondacks. That's a very big thing to people, an important thing, important reason why people live here. So we need to protect the environment, and that includes taking action on climate change. And by the way, I just want to mention, I've been endorsed by the League of Conservation Voters. The League of Conservation Voters issues scorecards on all elected officials. My opponent, I'm afraid to say, got a failing score with the League of Conservation Voters. And I'm also endorsed by the Sierra Club, another leading environmental group. And one of the things I've done as an activist a number of years ago, citizens led by the Sierra Club pressured our state government to force General Electric to clean up the PCBs out of the Hudson River. And there were, as many of us know, PCBs are a very, very toxic, cancer-causing chemical, and the Hudson River was polluted by General Electric out of, I think, the Hudson Falls Hudson Falls or Fort Edward area. GE had facilities, and we had public hearings. We talked to our legislators, we had citizen lobby days, public rallies, and we got our government to force GE to do something about this. So that's some of the environmental work I've been involved in. I was also involved not just in trying to protect the Hudson River. In downtown Albany, I worked for the state of New York in downtown. There was a plant called the Answers plant. It's actually still there. And it is just north of and downhill from the state office buildings in downtown Albany. And it is really in Sheridan Hollow in a community that is largely populated by people of color and people of relatively lower income. And it was burning garbage and polluting the people who live there. And unfortunately, we've seen pollution is often disproportionately harming people of color and lower income people. Well, many of us fought against this. We had rallies and lobbied our elected officials and fought real hard, and we made a change. And there's still more to be done there, but something that I was involved in, an issue of environmental justice. And we now, one of the things that we need to do is we need to make the state capitol and the office buildings the state has in the area all run on clean energy. And there's a renewable capital bill. It did not pass. That's something that I'm going to fight to pass. We need to lead by example. We can heat the state capitol and cool it with geothermal power instead of burning gas. And yes, burning gas is better than burning the garbage that it had been producing before. So we improve things, but there's a long way to go. And I'd like to talk a little bit about climate change. That is something I hear particularly from young people, and rightfully so, because we are now starting to see the beginnings of climate change. Last year, I think we all breathed the air from the smoke from the Canadian wildfires. This summer, we had some very serious heat waves, and people, not just across the country, across the world, people died and people suffered. And this was perhaps the hottest summer on record, and the past few summers have been hotter. But 10 years from now, we may look back and say 2024 was the coolest summer we've had in 10 years. So we're just beginning to see the effects of climate change. And this is something where science, the scientific community, is in consensus on, that we have to stop burning fossil fuels. So New York, again, can be a leader, just like we can be a leader on healthcare. We can be a leader on climate change. But let's remember, New York is a very, very large economy. If we were a separate nation, I think we would be the 11th or 12th largest economy in the world. So what we do here can make a very big difference. And I'd like to see New York, particularly this part of upstate New York, lead the nation in the clean energy economy of the future. And this is certainly a lot about stopping climate change, where we all have a moral responsibility, everyone, not just New York, not just the United States of America, but across the world, we have a moral obligation to do something. And we know that the costs of climate change, if we don't do anything, are much greater. The costs of inaction are much greater than the costs of taking climate action. But this is
So,
also, and I'm sorry. You were saying something?
No, no, go
So,
ahead, go ahead.
but this is also an economic matter too. Uh, we can be a leader in producing our own clean energy here in upstate New York. And if we think about our money, now I pay, and probably you do, many of us pay National Grid or another uh, energy provider. It's a foreign corporation. When you pay that bill, where is that money going? Well, a lot of it is going far away from our communities. Or when you fill up your gas tank, where is that money going? Well, it's going sometimes to foreign corporations, to very ultra wealthy corporate interests, and not staying so much in our communities. But if we change that, if we produce our own homegrown clean energy, solar power, wind power, geothermal, hydro, that means that the money that we're spending on our energy stays here in our community. It produces good paying jobs, hopefully union jobs that can't be outsourced. You know, I was a software developer, and software development can be outsourced. We've seen a lot of that. And you could have somebody the other side of the world writing code for our software. But if you have um, solar farms, wind farms. And by the way, I'd like to see community solar and community wind farms so that the economic benefit stays here. But the jobs that are necessary are not jobs somebody can do across the world. So it means good paying jobs that can't be outsourced. It means our money staying on our community. So these are big economic boons as well as protecting our environment, uh, and combating the incredibly civilization threatening climate change. Again, we have lived for, I don't know, 10,000, 20,000 years, how long we've had civilizations, we know it. We have lived in a relatively stable climate. You know, we have, if you, I think the astronauts, when they go up out in outer space, they look at the Earth and they realize how thin a layer around the Earth the atmosphere is. So we've got this very little, comparatively small uh, part just above the planet's surface of the atmosphere that we need to keep stable. And we have had for, I think, hundreds of thousands of years, carbon in the chemical composition of the atmosphere at a rate of under, I think, 350 parts per million. Well, now, just over the past 100 years or so, particularly in the past few decades, that has gone up dramatically towards over 400 parts per billion, and that's not sustainable in terms of having a stable climate. And climate change is not just about heat waves, but it's kind of like throwing a monkey wrench into these long established patterns of nature. And so things like changing the Gulf Stream, the currents in the oceans might actually make certain places very, very cold. So it's kind of things that make our climate haywire. And again, civilization as we know it is based upon a stable climate. And I know what I've heard from some people talk about migrants. Well, let's think that there are very large parts of the population on this planet that live in coastal areas. And the oceans absorb most of the heat of climate change. And as the icebergs, the poles, the permanent ice there becomes not so permanent, begins to melt, uh, then the oceans will rise. And populations, many millions of people who live on the coastal areas that would become uninhabitable if the oceans rise due to climate change. Where are those people going to go? You're going to see migration problems that make today's migration issues seem small by comparison. So these kind of all these are all related, and these are three of my top issues. Another, you know, there are a number of different issues Certainly, we need to protect reproductive health. We've seen that threatened. I can't believe that 50 years after we thought we had protected women's right to control their own bodies, it's being taken away. In New York State, there's an equal rights amendment on the ballot this November. And my campaign is telling people not just to vote for me and to vote for some of my fellow working families Democrats, but also to vote for this equal rights amendment. The equal rights amendment would certainly cement reproductive rights. It would also establish in the New York State Constitution equal rights for people regardless of religion, of race, skin color, ethnicity, national background, gender, gender orientation. It would cement equal rights for all. And let me take my opponent's position on this. Well, there was a rally at the state capitol with the issue of the Equal Rights Amendment, and my opponent was there. But it was a rally against the Equal Rights Amendment. So this is another very important issue where we differ very strongly. And I mentioned my opponent voted against health care for all, voted against protecting the environment, and of course has a failing environmental score, as opposed to equal rights, the Equal Rights Amendment. And so these are some top issues that I'm emphasizing. And again, I have nothing against my opponent. I wish for her and her family to have good health care, good education, good clean environment. So this is not against her, just trying to show a distinction, difference between what I would do and what she's done. She's been in office for 8 years and hasn't really had any say to speak of in the budget. She hasn't passed any legislation of substance. Again, to her credit, she's a very polite, professional, well-spoken woman. She's an attorney. She maintains a law practice, and serving as an assembly member is a part-time job for her, for which she gets paid a lot of money. I think the legislators are paid too much, actually, and I plan to donate a good amount of my salary. But I will serve as a full-time legislator. So that's those are some of my issues. That's some of the things that I think distinguish myself from my opponent.
And I think one of the things that you also mentioned, empowerment, representation, and all these other things that actually you care about. And as part of this interview, it's actually really the educational part. And maybe a few words that you could share with the community, especially members who feel that, and especially for you, I think your position is very unique, and it would be a powerful message because you're kind of like, shifting from an activist to representative, right? You understand that the change comes from within. So I think the message that we're trying to get across is, not only for those who are registered to vote and deciding or debating whether should they come out and vote or not, but also those who are eligible to vote, to register to vote, but they're saying, really, my voice is not going to matter. What's the message that you have for them, for somebody who understands how much
Sure,
these votes
sure.
matter in weight?
Well, I think in terms of this election, in terms of my campaign, that is the big challenge. The big challenge is there are many people who feel disaffected, and people tell me, "Oh, all politicians suck. All politicians are liars. All politicians are phonies." And that's the hardest thing that I have to overcome is that perception, and I sure understand how people feel that way. Uh, and again, the message to people that I have to people is the least you can do is vote. And you may think it doesn't make a difference. I've seen elections that were very close. There was a state Senate election a few years ago that was decided by 17 votes. I'm not talking about 1,700 or 170, 17 votes. And people, your voice will be heard if I'm elected. I'm not going to be like an average politician who hides out. I will be continuing to have public meetings on listening to you. And even if you disagree with me, I'm trying to be open minded. Again, I have my basic principles: democracy, honesty, respect, and decency. And beyond that, I'm open-minded on any issue. And I've changed some of my positions actually, and I've taken on some issues that I didn't realize, I wasn't aware of how important they are. So I'm willing to hear from people who feel disaffected, and certainly from Republicans and Democrats and independent. And you know, the problem with politics, as terrible as politics are, as annoying as it is, as much as it turns people off, that's how our money is spent. You know, we
Yeah.
are all paying the taxes. We are all affected by the government. Uh, so the actions of our government really affect our lives. And it seems to me that the rich and powerful would love nothing more than all the people to think that politics doesn't matter and people to withdraw from politics. So let's not give that to them. Let's not give them this win. People stay involved in politics as much as it turns your stomach, perhaps. And again, a lot of what bothers people about politics is the name calling, the divisiveness, and the hate. And I'm trying to overcome that. And as I mentioned, I'm having public town hall meetings. And one of the main purposes of those public town hall meetings is to show that we can interact, people who disagree, people who are from different parties, but we can be civil. We can talk about facts. We can discuss things as adults, nothing against children, mind you, but or at least try to be like adults. Uh, and so to the people who are disaffected, I get it. I hear you. I know why you're disaffected. I'm as irritated by all the negative things of politics. But if we let that keep us from voting, then we are letting the ultra wealthy, those who would divide us, to control politics and exclude our voice, we're letting them win. So let's not let them win. Uh, Please do your part, everyone. Vote, register to vote. You can go to the Board of Elections in your county, Saratoga County, or whatever county you live. Look up the Board of Elections and register to vote. In my campaign, as I go door to door, I always keep some voter registration forms with me. And occasionally, I'm getting lists of people who are registered voters. Occasionally, in a household, I talk to somebody who says they're not registered. I make sure to give them a voter registration form. What I find very positive, sometimes I go to a door and I talk to someone who's younger, and I ask them if they're old enough to vote. They're not. They're 16 or 17 years old, but I'm finding that a number of them have pre-registered. In New York, you can pre-register as young as 16 years old. So that's heartening.
Yeah.
And I must tell you, I am very much impressed by the young people. I find many of them to be more interested and more knowledgeable than some of us older people.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I mean, I really enjoyed the interview. I personally, an activist, I learned more about you as somebody who's really trying to shift, again, from that position, trying to bring the change from outside to bringing it from within. Final message, and also for somebody who wants to learn more about your campaign, more about what you're really bringing to the table, is there a link, Facebook
Yes.
page, whatever you could share with us?
Sure.
We'd really
So
appreciate it.
my website is fairly easy to remember. It's joe4assembly.com. That's JOE, the number four, not FOR, but the number four assembly. JOE, the number four assembly.com. And on the website, there's a link to my Facebook page, and you can follow me there. Uh, and you have a little bit of more detail about some of the policy positions. And I'll be putting out some of my press coverages. As a matter of fact, in today's newspaper, we're recording this on September 9th, today's Times Union, there was an article about former Governor Cuomo and some of the information he kept from people and wasn't quite honest about during the COVID pandemic and trying to protect the safety of seniors in nursing homes. And I'm putting out a press release about that. And I'm, in this case, I'm taking on, yes, even my Democratic allies, saying, where the heck was the legislature? Now, Congress is investigating this. And of course, Congress has all kinds of absurd partisan notions that they like to attack. You know, it's a Republican House and they'll do anything they can to make the Democrats look bad. But our state legislature should have been looking into this. So, you know, I'll be putting that on my website, my different press statements, more details about the policies that I'm advocating, and also on my website, there's a little thing saying we want to hear from you. And again, what I want to invite everyone is to let me know. You don't have to just contact me if you agree with me. You know, if you don't have to contact me because you like me. I want to be a representative of the people. And frankly, if the community that I represent has a consensus on an issue that I don't agree with, I'm willing to change my mind. And more important than doing what I believe is the right policy is listening to the people and having policies that represent them. That's what democracy is really about. And folks, democracy is not a spectator sport. We need you. And if you like what I'm saying, please like my Facebook page. Please sign up on my website. My campaign is most of them are volunteers. You know, we have one paid staff member, and we have a couple of consultants that are paying little bits, but pretty much it's a campaign of volunteers, of average people who care about democracy. So if you want to be a part of this, that's how we're going to win. We're going to win if we have average people being a part of our democracy. And I don't just mean we're going to win this election, but we, the people, are going to win control of our republic and protect our republic, which is seriously in danger if we step up. And I know life is hard and we have so many things, and people have jobs and have family obligations, and kids have after school stuff, and I drive my grand kids around to some of their stuff. So you know, I know there's a lot going on in our lives, and it's hard to be involved, but to the extent that you care, please get involved. Make a difference. I think someone recently said, do something. So I'm trying to do something, and I hope everyone also takes that to heart. Do something, and let's try and play an active role in our democracy. Please, again, find me online, Joe, the number 4 assembly, joe4assembly.com. Let me know what you think. Help us if you can. And of course, remember to vote.
Joe for Assembly, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Noni, as an activist, very happy for you for the decision that you made to run, and best of luck. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Chikima. Thank you for your time. Thank you for all the work that you've done, and for the people listening to know that I recently ran into Dr. Chikima in the state capitol at a climate action. So
Yes.
thank you for all that you are doing too.
Thank you. We'll stay in touch. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Have a great night.
Great to see you. Bye-bye now. Hanging up.